You're listening to the Life with Old Dogs podcast, and I'm your host, Dawn Memnaugh, primary caretaker of all of our wonderful senior German Shepherds right here at Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. Hey there, folks. This week's episode is being sponsored by The Shepherd Shop. The Shepherd Shop sells German Shepherd and dog-related merchandise, as well as our one-of-a-kind Woody's Place merchandise, with proceeds supporting Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. So to check out The Shepherd Shop and support the sanctuary, head on over to www.wpsgss.org/Shepherd Shop. That's SHEPHERDSHOPPE. And now, back to our episode. Hey there, welcome back to the Life with Old Dogs podcast. I am here with Doreen Jakubcak from Marty's Place Senior Dog Sanctuary, I believe in North Freehold Township, New Jersey. Is that correct?
Upper Freehold Township. We are right next to the town of Allentown.
Okay. All right. And at Marty's Place, what you do is you rescue older dogs, 7 years older and beyond, and you provide them with physical and emotional comfort and companionship throughout their golden years. Is that correct?
That's correct. When we started Marty's Place, we wanted this to be as much of a home-like setting as we could possibly make it, recognizing we're doing this in a community living setting. But when dogs come to us, our commitment is that they will have a home for their remaining years, either in the sanctuary with us or where we can, we do try to find them a new adoptive or forever foster home.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. We love hearing that. Really love folks who work with the seniors. So, Doreen, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you came about. I believe you're the founder of Marty's Place, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And let me start by saying that I am not a self-described animal welfare expert. That is not where I have spent my career. I did have another career prior to this in the communications technology sector, worked for a few different companies. And then I decided it was time to retire from that sector. And I took some time trying to figure out, okay, what's my next chapter? Looked at different opportunities and nothing really clicked with me. At the time, we had 2 Labradors. And they really were our world. We wound up losing them a year apart, and that was very tough for us to handle. And so we initially thought, okay, we're going to take a break from having, another dog. And then I like to say Marty found us. There really was a Marty, and I learned about his story through a series of emails. He spent about 6 months in a shelter. He was fortunately rescued by an organization who then tried to place him for a significant amount of time. Unfortunately, they weren't successful because he was developing physical issues. And so when I saw the emails and we met Marty, we decided that we would be Marty's last stop. And we only had him for about a year, but it was through our experience with him and his really zest for life. I mean, he did have physical limitations, and in the time that he was with us, he lost his ability to ambulate completely. We did things like we got a quad cart for him, and we got a little red wagon for him. I guess you could say I had my aha moment, and it was because of him that I decided this is what I was meant to do at this part of my life.
Mm-hmm. So it's safe to say that Marty maybe changed the trajectory of your life?
That's an understatement. Yeah. And, you start with a premise of, you know what? I just want to help a few dogs. And little did we know where that would take us. That simple premise took us on what I describe many times as a journey. And, the first thing after we decided, yes, this was really something we wanted to do, I did go on what I call a fact-finding mission where I met with different organizations to see how they were doing things. We had to figure out where we were going to do this because where we live, we couldn't do something like this. So I would say it was better part of 4 years where we went from the germ of the idea to finding property to getting approvals to do what we wanted to do, and then the physical construction. Everything that is here on our campus was purposely built for the dogs. When we acquired this property, it was acquired specifically for building the sanctuary. It was a tree farm, so there was nothing here but rows and rows of trees. And so everything that's here, we purposely built for the dogs.
That's wonderful. And how long has Marty's Place been in existence?
Next month will be 8 years that we're operational. Sometimes it seems just like yesterday, and other days it seems like we've been at this for 20 years.
Right. I understand that. I really do. And that's what this podcast season is about. I wanted to really address the behind the scenes of animal sanctuary and rescue, the trials, the tribulations, what it really takes. Because, and I'm sure you get this, or you have gotten this quite often over the years. I know I have. I know other guests of the podcast have. People come to you and they say, I want to start a dog rescue or an animal rescue. I want to start a dog or an animal sanctuary. And, they really don't know exactly what it's going to take to fulfill that dream, which hopefully will end up being a reality at some point. And it just, for me, it became important to bring this information to life. And I'm not talking about just the logistics of it. I'm talking about what it really takes from you as a person, what you are really putting into this, not just the dollars. I'm talking about you yourself. And that's what I'm hoping to get out there today. So.
Absolutely. Like you said, you get those types of questions. I get them as well quite often. And when I do get a question like that, I respond with two things. One, that is great. The demand is out there. And, one of the things that I will say from the time we became operational every day forward, even today, as we're sitting here talking, we continue to evolve based on how we see the need changing. But by definition, the need is great. And so whatever somebody can do to help the plight of senior dogs or for dogs of all ages, multi-species, that's a wonderful thing. The second thing that I say is you really need to think about how much you're willing to change your life. Because depending on how you implement it and how much you take on and what you do, your life can significantly change. So if you like your life the way it is right now, think about the different ways you can help animals. It's not just a singular solution of I want to start a sanctuary. There are many ways you could help animals, whether it's volunteering at another organization or fostering or whatever. Then the other thing is, how do you want to implement it? Do you want to do it out of your home? Do you want to purposely build a structure like we did. Dogs are living beings and animals are living beings. They require care 24/7.
Right.
And so you have to think about things like, what's your model for care? Can you do it with volunteers? Do you need staff? When we started, I was initially thinking, I'm going to do this relying on volunteers. Well, very quickly after we got started, when you think about the consistency in the level of care that's needed, especially for older dogs, you can't do it with just volunteers, or that was my conclusion anyway. So we have a small core staff, but we also augment that with volunteers. So we can't do what we do without volunteers, but we also can't do what we do without our staff. So there really is a multitude of things that you really need to think about if you are serious about embarking on something like this. And it's not one size fits all. So the model that we implemented here may not be the model that is the right thing for somebody else to do. We are but one way of doing it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And that is something that I wanted to ask you about, is the volunteer base and the staff base and how you were modeled, but you pretty much covered it right there. I have come to find I've been doing Woody's Place exclusively for a decade and a half now. And I have come to find that volunteers, although some are very well-meaning, they come and go. They have their own lives. They have things that come up. Maybe a spouse dies. Maybe they move away. Someone lost a job. And although I agree with you, they are needed, I have come to find that I try not to rely on volunteers for day-to-day operations because of the reasons you just cited as well. The animals in our care, just like the animals in your care, they need care all the time. And somebody, it's typically me and Mr. Woody's Place, needs to be there for their needs. And again, volunteers, although very, very needed, they also have their own lives, and then their volunteering kind of becomes secondary. So I totally agree with what you're saying. Yes, absolutely.
I think we have been blessed and extremely fortunate with both our staff as well as our volunteer corps. I have gotten a very passionate staff that go above and beyond. We have dealt with emergency situations, and a staff member will, no problem, I'll get the dog to North Star Animal Hospital, which is up the road over here, and our go-to for emergency and specialty care. But we've also had volunteers that have stepped up for that too. We do rely a lot on our volunteers to help with fundraising, outreach activities. We do incorporate volunteers into our daily care routine, but they augment our staff.
Right.
But they do help out with a variety of tasks. And, with a building like we have, and I'm sure you're faced with this, there's always something. Just this past weekend when I was here, I cover the weekends, most of the weekends over here. And I'm working with one of the dogs, and all of a sudden I'm hearing this very faint, like alarm, and I'm like, now what? And so I'm walking around, and I find that we're on septic and well over here. So I find an alarm is going off with our well system. Like, the Saturday night, now what? So right. Fortunately, it was something that was easily fixable, but you never know what you're going to be faced with. But there's always something going on, and we even have some volunteers that are very handy with fixing things, and they don't hesitate to come in and help out, whether it's figuring out what might be wrong with a washing machine or something else that's going on.
And these are just the tip of the iceberg, really, for sanctuary life, like you're saying, like an alarm going off, a wash or something. And I don't know about your experience, but mine is, well, they'll always happen at 2 a.m. on a Sunday night when help is hard to come by.
Oh, absolutely. I have our plumber on speed dial, and most of the time I'm calling him on a Monday morning. But I'd like to say
Yeah.
in terms of our daily routine, we have a pretty defined daily routine. Our day usually starts around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and we go till about 8:30, 9 in the evening. And I like to say every day is the same, but every day can be different. We have a series of tasks that we get through when we first walk in the door. Every dog gets to go out for a bathroom break. They go back to their rooms for breakfast. Then we start our cleaning routine. All the dog rooms get cleaned, and all the dogs go to their respective open spaces. But we have had situations where first thing in the morning, we're dealing with taking a dog to the emergency room. Or during the course of a day, we had one dog. He was a wonderful dog, about 100-pound dog that was with us. And he was with us for about a year. And it was a couple days before Christmas one year. And he was fine during the course of the day. And about 6 o'clock in the evening, one of our staff members came to me and said, you know what, something's off with Buddy. So we went to look at him, and I said, let's get him to the emergency room. Well, it turned out at 4 o'clock that morning, we were back in the emergency room saying goodbye to him.
Sorry.
We do what it takes in terms of caring for the dogs, as well as being for them. It's very important for us where we can. We always want to be there for a dog when it's time to say goodbye.
Yes.
But going back to, the whole question about people that want to do this and things they need to think about. Another part of that is the level of care that you're going to be willing to provide to your residents. For us, it's not just about existing here. When a dog comes to us, we really try to treat them as if they were one of our own dogs for many years. Everybody from staff to volunteers wraps themselves around a dog and starts loving them from the day that they walk in the door. And we're doing things like getting wellness checks. We have several dogs. Again, being senior dogs, a lot of them are faced with the lack of dental care. So we do things like dentals. We do things like surgeries. Next week, one of our residents is going in for surgery to remove mammary tumors. So it's what is the level of care that you're willing to provide? And then that relates back to where's the funding going to come from? And then what is your fundraising going to look like? So it's just, all the things that you need to think about as you're embarking on this.
I agree, because actually it is a business. It really is absolutely a business, and it needs to be run like a business. So, and I would also like to add there of course is the whole physical and emotional aspect for, what are you going to be able to put in? What are you going to be able to take? Of course, it needs dollars. You can't run a sanctuary without money, and you need to have that fundraising plan calendar put in place in the beginning of the year and your budget. Again, that's the business aspect, but it also does take a toll on you physically and emotionally and even mentally. I mean, there's a huge burnout rate in the population that we serve. There's a huge burnout rate for the people who deal with animals like we do, the geriatric ones, the older ones for sure. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. And I'm not a sugarcoater. I just don't. I say it like it is. And I all the loving that you're talking about, I totally agree. We do that here at Woody's Place. But when you're doing that all that loving, the compassion and care, there's no way that it can't hurt you when it comes time to say goodbye. It's very bittersweet. You're happy you could help, but it just hurts to see them go. And for me, that's where I've seen a lot of our volunteers slip away. Like they're not able to deal with that. They're just not able to deal with that. And I respect that. I respect that because not everyone is. But if you're going to work with any sort of animal population, whether it be senior or geriatric or even younger, you have to know two things. You have to know how to say no and not take more than you can handle. And you have to learn to let go and say goodbye when it's time.
Sure, I agree with that. On a day-to-day basis, what are those things that cause you stressors? Yeah, there are those days where I feel like, gosh, I wish we could do more because like I said earlier, the need is so great. And I'm sure you get multiple requests on a daily basis to take in dogs. And at times it's difficult saying no, but what we're very careful of is we can't overburden ourselves. We do have lives. We are humans. We are affected by this. And so we can't adversely affect our staff as well as our volunteer corps. And if it is about a certain level of quality of care, we can't just pack in dogs here and expect to be able to do that effectively.
Right.
Yes, part of what we do is saying goodbye. And, those aren't easy decisions, and I don't think they're meant to be easy decisions. I don't take lightly the decision of saying goodbye to a dog, but nonetheless, it's something we have to do.
Right.
And it comes back to the dog, because the last thing we want to do is let that dog linger and suffer needlessly. So we do come together as a staff, and we debate, we discuss, and we always wind up in the right place in terms of when it's time. When I look back on some of the decisions we made, did we make it one day too soon? Did we make it one day too late? But we get there. We get there as we need to. This also comes up, going back to I feel like we've been evolving since we started. When we opened our doors, we were focused like a laser on our Sanctuary Life program, just getting the building up, operational, welcoming dogs into the building. Very quickly after we opened the doors, we were getting inundated with requests, and we was like, well, how are we going to manage all this? And we can't just wait until a dog passes on. So that's when we started initially a small adoption program. I would classify it initially as starting out like friends and family adoptions, but then over time we have broadened our reach with the adoption efforts. But we also do forever foster, where we retain ownership of the dog, but the dog resides indefinitely in a home. And sometimes when we've had conversations with people about taking in a senior dog, the response has been, well, I'm not sure I want to do that for a couple of reasons. One, they may already have medical issues, and that means costs, vet bills. So we said, we can alleviate that with our foster program. We'll take care of most of the expenses, especially the medical expenses. So you won't have to worry about that. And then the second thing is, but they're not going to be with me very long. And that's going to be heartbreaking. And we can't necessarily fix that problem. But what we try to encourage people to do is to think about the quality of life. What I have found with older dogs, they know what you did for them. They know that you saved them. They know that you are helping them. And they are forever grateful for what you did. And the love that you will get from them in return for it may only be 1 or 2 years as opposed to 10 years. But even with a younger dog, there's no guarantee you're going to get 10 years with that younger dog. It's priceless. And, and so we encourage people to think in those terms. Some do and others don't. And I respect that.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I have the same philosophy. It is not really about how many years they have left. It's about the time that you have with them. And I agree about them knowing that you're helping them and the gratitude that they have for you. You can almost see it in their expressions on their faces. And I know that sounds crazy, but to me, it's the truth.
No, you could see it. You could see it. I mean, we've had some dogs that have come in here, you know, even a dog that comes in that comes from the most positive environment, their world has just been turned upside down. They're in the middle of totally strange environment, totally strange people. It's like, what the heck just happened? My world just got rocked. And so even the most well-adjusted dog goes through that transition phase where they're trying to figure out who are these people, what's going to happen to me, and so on. And then we've had some dogs come to us that come from not so great environments. We've had dogs that come to us that don't know the difference between inside and outside in terms of eliminating. You know, one dog, she would just walk up and down the halls, you know, squat when she needed to. And then we worked with her over a period of time. And it was like the light bulb went on, and she just having her come over to us and show emotion to us and lick our faces. You know, it's like, that's what makes your day. You know, It's those simple things that remind you this is what makes it all worthwhile. So when you are dealing with those stressors that might occur during the course of the day, you know, I tend to just fall back to the simple things. And knowing that we saw a dog that went from a totally shut down state to one that is running across the yard or running up to you and giving you kisses when you greet them, that makes it all worthwhile.
It does. It is wonderful to see them come out of their shell and blossom. And I believe they are resilient for the most. There are some that, you know, we've struggled with at the sanctuary over the last decade and a half, but my goodness, most of them are resilient. And they get over the abandonment and then transition and then go on to live a happy, healthy life in their golden years. And really, that's what it's all about for me, anyway.
Absolutely.
So tell me some of the ways that you show self-care for yourself when you know, at the end of the day or at the end of the week. Now, you just said that you are at the sanctuary on the weekends. So where do you find time in your schedule for you to decompress? Because I believe if you're going to run a sanctuary or a rescue, you need to have some time for self-care. So how do you incorporate that into your schedule?
Well, I guess a few ways. One way that I allow myself to decompress and take a few deep breaths, I will grab a leash and grab a dog and go for a walk. And just being out there in the fresh air and just focusing on the dog and watching them sniff. You know, for a dog, sniffing along the way on a walk is one of, you know, their inherent pleasurable things to do. And so just being able to focus on that and nothing else, you know, you could just feel yourself coming down. You know, the other way is we have a family room, one of our main common spaces. I mentioned earlier that our dogs have individual rooms. They're in those rooms for two main reasons, sleeping overnight and mealtime. Everybody goes to a personal space for mealtime. But otherwise, we want to have the dogs in open spaces. We have 2 big rooms where we have groups of dogs, but then we have dogs all over the building. The reality is not all dogs get along with other dogs. Not
Right.
all dogs are dog friendly, so they're all over the place. But there are times when I will just go into the family room or go into another sitting area and just sit down and play with the dog. And there too, you could just feel, if your shoulders are like this, all of a sudden you can just start feeling your shoulders starting to relax. And for me, that's a positive thing. Exercise has always been an important element in my daily life, even prior to the sanctuary. So I would say 6 out of the 7 days of the week, I am trying to get some form of exercise, whether that's a home routine or a bike ride or something else. So that continues to be an important element for me. Deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
You walk away from a situation, sit down in a chair, and just take some deep breaths. So there are some just, I find some of the simpler things again that just remind me, to keep in perspective. And
yes,
and then you think about some of the bigger stuff that's going on, and it's like, what's really important? It's important. It is important for me to keep connections with people outside of the sanctuary. I have tremendous family and friends, and so it's important for me to keep connected with them as well. So, as we've talked, the sanctuary can be all consuming. And so just taking a few minutes out of a day to connect with a family member or a friend and hearing what's going on in their world, it's extremely helpful. When it comes to loss, we allow ourselves to grieve. We've had a few pet loss sessions where we've brought in people from the outside to talk with us. There's always we always have situations where we get into debates and discussions about different ways to do things. So we make time to talk those things out. So it really is a variety, but it is important, when you have that moment, whether it's when you first start your day or when you're ending your day, reminding yourself what's important across the board.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And I love what you were talking about with walking with the dogs and letting them sniff. And I refer to it as a sniffari. And we're here in the Pocono Mountains, and our property is a combination of fields and woods. And we have trails through the woods, and that's my favorite place to be with the residents here of Woody's Place. And it's their favorite place too. Again, who doesn't love being in nature? And then the dogs are, of course, smelling all sorts of smells that are enticing to them. And you could see the wheels in their head turning. So they have that mental stimulation. And I just love it. I love watching them. I often find myself while they're sniffing, I'll do something silly like look at fungus growing on a tree and think, wow, that is just so interesting, and find myself wanting to learn more about it. And, it doesn't cost a cent, not one thing. And then we all walk away from those walks in the woods feeling revitalized, centered, and ready to go back inside and tackle whatever it is that we need to tackle. So I love that you do that as well. And I think we all need to do that. Keeping in touch with family and friends is important as well, because as you said, sanctuary life is or can be all consuming. And we have to remember that there are other important aspects to life as well. And I'm a huge, huge proponent on finding a balance. Because if you do one all the time, every day, 24/7, 365, you're going to burn out. I feel it's a recipe for burnout. So, that's my take on that as well. So if someone again was to walk up to you and say, they want to start a sanctuary, just in a couple sentences, what would you say? What would your direct response to them be?
Well, going back to my earlier comments, the need is great. Whatever you can do to help is a good thing, because there are so many dogs out there that are in need.